Welcome to Everything You Need to Know. And today we are doing beans. And I know in your picture, all you have is these two. That's our fresh ones. That's because we're filming early in the summer and beans are still growing. So you'll have to make do with the pictures that you see. So I wanted to describe a little bit about the difference of beans, because we call beans lentils, we call beans, we call black beans beans, we call chickpeas beans, we call snap peas beans, we call lima beans beans, and green beans beans, and then there's wax beans. What are all these beans? Well, I've discovered that there's 3 different categories. The first category is the dry beans. These are the beans that are harvested at complete maturity. So as you can guess, those are Rebecca's favorites. The lentils, the black beans, the chickpeas, the navy beans, those ones that are dry. They're fully harvested when they're completely mature. So that's category number 1. Number 2 is snap beans. And these are the ones where the tender pods are also edible. Things like snow peas and snap peas, green and yellow beans. These are all that second category. Then we have the shelled beans. These are the ones that are seeds that are harvested, and they're at full maturity, but the pods you don't eat. You just eat the bean inside. For example, lima beans, those beans that we get in the middle of our frozen vegetable bags, and we're like, what are they doing here? I don't even know what they are. That's the third category, those shell beans and the butter beans. So we'll just chat about them briefly. Lima beans are actually much more similar to that first category of dry beans, those lentils and the chickpeas, because they're high in fiber, high in protein, just like those legumes. So lima beans are actually good for us. Little did we know, right? We've been throwing them out of frozen bean bags or frozen vegetable bags forever. And those church potlucks, there always seems to be lima beans in something. So now we know that that third category, shelled beans, lima beans are similar in nutrition to those legumes. So they're high in fiber, high in protein, moderate in carb, but it's a complex carb. So it's good for people that are struggling with sugar sensitivities like those diabetics. And it's low in fat. And they also call lima beans butter beans because they have a rich, buttery flavor. So I might try them out next time instead of throwing them out. They seem, or they sound, kind of good and delightful tasting. So what is that second category? Well, that second category are these ones that we typically know as beans. These are the snap beans, so the string beans, the green and yellow beans, and also the snap peas. Those are called snap beans in some technical terms. So they're a rich source of some vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin C, which we simply usually think of as like citrus fruits. Well, they're in our green beans as well, and our yellow beans, but they're also high in folic acid as well as fiber. And we know that these, specifically the beans, can come fresh or frozen now. Just in the past couple of years, I found that there's a lot of more brands that are starting to freeze beans, which is really great. They can also come canned. And I challenge you, if you have only ever eaten a green bean from a can, to try them fresh or try them frozen. They're a completely different food. They're not rubbery, they're not soft, they don't have that, I don't know, mushy kind of texture that the can does. So I challenge you to try the fresh. And they're not, yes, green beans are actually green instead of the brown ones that come in the can. So what is the difference, you might ask, between green beans and yellow beans? And the difference is only what makes grass green and leaves green. It's chlorophyll. That tiny little pigment that is green is found in green beans and not in yellow beans. So in fact, because we know chlorophyll is some sort of an antioxidant, which is something that keeps our body and our cells healthy, we can assume that green beans are a little bit healthier than yellow beans, and that's true. So the only difference is that chlorophyll and then the nutrition that comes with that chlorophyll. So one of the benefits of chlorophyll is, you know, when we grill steaks or hamburgers or something on the grill or on a frying pan, and it gets a little charred, it gets a little blackened. Well, chlorophyll in our body helps to protect our cells from becoming carcinogenic or cancerous, because that's what that char does to our body. So try to scrape off any char that you get from sauteing or barbecuing, or eat green beans at the same time. Pretty fantastic. Another really cool thing about what they're high in is that folate that I mentioned. And folate has actually been shown in numerous studies to help people's depression levels. Increase folate, decrease depression. So beans are really, really good, and both yellow and green for folate are really good for helping us really modulate our moods. Another thing that beans have is vitamin K, and vitamin K is linked with strong, healthy bones. So then if we can eat our vitamin K, we reduce our bone fractures, which is really great. So lastly, I want to say that sometimes you hear the word wax beans, and it tends to scare us off because we're like, I don't want to eat wax on my beans. But unlike apples, how apples get waxed covering them in like September, October when they're fresh so that they don't go bad fast, that kind of protects that oxygen so it doesn't shrivel up. Beans don't get wax sprayed on them, even though that's edible wax. They don't get wax sprayed on them, but as you can see, they're a little bit shiny, thus the name. So there actually isn't wax in or on beans. So you can eat your beans wax-free and still call them wax beans. So that other category, that first category that we talked about was that dry beans or legumes. Rebecca didn't let me talk about that today because she said, those are too fantastic. We need a whole session on legumes, on dry beans. So look forward to that in coming months. So remember that you can get beans, fresh, frozen, or canned, and frozen beans taste almost as great as fresh because they flash freeze them to preserve that taste and that nutrition. So go for it. Eat that frozen bean, especially all winter long. When you're purchasing beans, if you're purchasing them fresh, you can get them in small packages I've seen lately. So just make sure that they're not from too far away, because that traveling here might not fare for a good bean when you finally go to eat them. So the other thing is, when you go to choose them, you want a hard bean. So you can see this holds its form. It doesn't go limpy when I pick it up. If it goes limpy or it's wrinkled, then you know that just like an apple, it's lost its vigor, it's lost its water, it's gotten dehydrated, it's not going to taste as good, it's not going to chew as well, it's not going to be as nutritious. So definitely firm and straight, no limpy and wrinkled. And then if you're picking yellow beans, I find yellow beans really hard to purchase fresh in a bulk section in the grocery store, because a lot of times the bulk of them have brown spots on them, and the brown typically means that they're older. So look for fully yellow beans. And then, you know what, when you get them there, you might have to fight over them with all of us here because we like them as well, because they're a little less tough, a little less fibrous. But you can grab a whole bunch and freeze them. And don't even worry about blanching them. Just stick them in the freezer. You can put them on a cookie sheet to individually freeze them so they don't all mush together, and then just stick them in Ziploc bags and label them. Then you'll have yellow beans all winter long, which is pretty amazing. One last thing that I did want to mention, because Marianne told me the low and the dirty about growing. So beans come in packages typically as a seed, but you have to be careful which kind you get, because there's bush kind and there's pole kind. And if you have a pole and you're expecting them to grow, but you buy a bush, you're going to be disappointed. So just make sure you know which kind you're getting for the space that you have. And the last thing, if you want to add some beauty to your garden or to your patio, and you also want to eat something, you can look for the scarlet runner beans. These are called scarlet runners because not that the beans are red, but they get beautiful red scarlet flowers before the beans grow. So that can be a beautiful addition to your garden. So I hope you've enjoyed learning about the 3 different kinds of beans today, and that is all you need to know.